Tonight on Fox 45 News, Baltimore's top prosecutor called out by the state attorney general. Their public duel over the handling of Adnan Syed's release. Emails show how far DPW went to avoid questions from Fox 45 News and other media during the water crisis. Who set the directive and our continued push for answers? Preventing a repeat of the Stricker Street tragedy.
The program should have already been in effect.
A new program to keep firefighters from running into homes on the verge of collapse. Fox 45 is asking why it took so long to launch and compares it to a prior version.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 10.
Good evening, I'm Kai Jackson.
I'm Mary Bubala. City State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby firing back at Maryland Attorney General Brian Frosh tonight. Today, he filed a court document raising some red flags about Mosby's handling of the Adnan Syed case.
Last month, Baltimore City State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby moved to vacate Syed's conviction. Days later, he walked out of court a free man.
Jeff Abel has been looking into these new documents. He joins us live now with a closer look at how this could impact the Syed case. Jeff?
Well, the Attorney General came out swinging today, insisting he never hid evidence in this case and accusing prosecutors of having little evidence to warrant the release of Adnan Syed. In the months since Adnan Syed's release, the fight over his guilt or innocence has grown fierce. Some of the strongest words came from Maryland's Attorney General today, where Brian Frosh pointed to red flags in State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby's handling of the case, calling their investigation both unorthodox and questionable. The Attorney General wrote, "The timing and contents of the motion, the hearing on the motion, the subsequent dismissal of the charges, and the out-of-court statements of Baltimore City State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby raised red flags about the integrity and neutrality of the proceedings."
There's so many outstanding questions about what occurred here, and the Attorney General wants the courts to get to the bottom of that.
The Attorney General was responding today to efforts by defense attorneys to exclude him from a pending appeal in the case, but his words have put two prosecutors at odds.
It is highly unusual for two people who are customarily on the same team to be at such great odds with one another.
The state's attorney's office responded late today, writing, "We stand by our investigation and our ultimate finding that there is no credible evidence that Mr. Syed was involved in the death of Ms. Lee. Our investigation is extensive and only a portion of our findings were outlined in the motion in order to present enough compelling evidence for the court to consider our request without compromising this open and pending investigation."
Is a cause for deep concern.
Sean Kennedy with the Maryland Public Policy, deeply concerning.
There are killers on the streets of Baltimore today because Marilyn Mosby has a zeal for releasing them. Whatever is going on in integrity unit related to these exonerations stinks to high heaven.
Well, all of this comes in response to a lawsuit filed by the victim's family alleging that the court didn't give them adequate notice the day these charges were dismissed. We're live tonight. Jeff Abel, Fox 45 News.
All right, Jeff, thank you. Well, this is just the latest concern to come from the Baltimore City State's Attorney's Office. Last night, we told you about the plea deal offered to the 15-year-old squeegee kid accused of killing Timothy Reynolds back in July. If it wasn't rejected, the boy who would have been sent to prison for 60 years. A spokesperson for Marilyn Mosby's office admitted it was a mistake and the deal was rescinded. The Maryland Public Policy Institute wants an investigation into her office, citing possible instances of, quote, misconduct, incompetence, and mismanagement. The group is questioning recent exonerations after a federal judge said a freed Baltimore man used false evidence in 2018. And in June, a Baltimore judge wrote an opinion saying staffing problems in the state's attorney's office is leading to egregious failures in the case against 26 Baltimore City correctional officers. All charges were eventually dropped.
Baltimore City State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby will be back in court December 15th for a hearing on 3 issues concerning her upcoming trial. Now, those topics include Ms. Mosby's request to move the trial out of Baltimore, whether her legal team should be sanctioned for disclosing juror information, and the federal government's request for a gag order. Fox 45 News will follow the federal case against Marilyn Mosby and any other concerns that come up surrounding her office. We'll keep you up to date on air and on our website, foxbaltimore.com.
Well, Baltimore City residents will see a 25% discount on their water bills starting this week. The measure will help cover increased usage costs during the flushing process in West Baltimore for the boil water advisory last month, and as a way to pay residents back for their interrupted service. The discount will cover charges for the entire month of September and will be noted on bills under the line item adjusted fees. Now, today's announcement comes as Fox 45 News demands answers about how the city handled last month's E. coli contamination. Fox 45's Mackenzie Frost is looking into why the DPW needed clearance from the mayor's office to answer questions about the situation.
We're learning that DPW was actively avoiding answering questions from the media until the mayor's office weighed in. According to an expert we spoke with, this is just another example of a city agency struggling to gain the trust of the community.
In many ways, this is death by 1,000 cuts for Baltimore government. Seemingly from every possible entry point, they're taking on water. No pun intended.
Baltimore City's Department of Public Works faced a water crisis over Labor Day weekend. E. coli discovered in the water of West Baltimore September 3rd, confirmed with another round of testing September 4th, but the public didn't learn about the concerns until the following day. This tweet and this post on the Nextdoor app, 7:43 Monday morning. The public never heard from DPW or Mayor Brandon Scott until a news release was issued with a boil water advisory just after 4:30 Monday afternoon. And then, 4 hours later,
once DPW received that confirmation,
the leaders fielded questions for the first time.
It was how they communicated the treatment plan and the corresponding bedside manner that went along with it.
Doug Eldridge, a crisis communications expert, says the city should have been transparent from the start about the problem, especially when the mayor and DPW director Jason Mitchell doubled down on their compliance with the federal law that requires the public get notified of something like this within 24 hours.
Once DPW received that confirmation, the public was notified.
But the entire public wasn't notified officially for more than 24 hours after DPW learned of the E. coli contamination. And the timing of the notification is in question. Emails from the Maryland Department of Environment telling DPW to issue a boil water advisory Sunday multiple times.
But one area that really hurts the team that serves him, and by extension the city, is this notion of everything's perfect. Everything was done by the book. No changes could or should have been made. That's a tough approach for any leader to take.
Paging through the thousands of emails Fox 45 News obtained, media inquiries from Fox 45 and other reporters were being discussed, only to be met with resistance to answer from Yolanda Winkler, DPW's communications director at the time. One email, dated September 5th, just after 11:30 in the morning, Winkler tells staff not to answer questions from the media, writing, quote, "The media saw our tweet and that stands for now," adding, "Anything we say must be approved by the mayor's office." We sent an email to Mayor Scott's office asking if that was true, and if so, quote, was the mayor's office gatekeeping information from the public? Monica Lewis, Scott's spokesperson, says, quote, given the magnitude of the situation Monday, the mayor's office was brought in to support the communications, adding, in no way are we gatekeeping information. We also sent the question to DPW asking why was DPW waiting to answer questions from the press regarding the E. coli contamination until it was cleared by the mayor's office. DPW referring Fox 45 News to the statement from the mayor's office. Last week, Fox 45 News learned Winkler is no longer running communications at DPW.
Not at this point.
When did that change happen?
We're looking at announcing a change very quickly.
Now, learning she is still working within the department as Chief of Strategic Alliance. When pressed on the apparent gaps in the timeline, Mayor Scott, maintaining his agency, followed protocols.
What matters is what the Department of MDE has said, and they said that we follow their protocols to a T.
But our investigation shows otherwise, and MDE took issue with the communication.
While there might not have been deaths in this situation with the E. coli, the problem is the underlying protocol and the systems that are put in place. And anytime you have lapses...
DPW is a department plagued with problems. Trash and recycling pickup concerns, water billing woes.
But the reality is, the only people that are ultimate losers are the citizens of Baltimore.
The latest issue, people turned on the faucets over Labor Day weekend and found possibly contaminated water, and few answers dripped from the government people trusted. We're still working to find out more information about that possible federal law violation, about when DPW notified the public, and we're still awaiting more emails from a separate public records request for this investigation. In Baltimore, Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
Well, Mayor Brandon Scott says there was appropriate communication surrounding the E. coli water crisis. There was criticism from some city council members during 2 hearings last month. Councilman Yitzi Schleifer repeated his concerns in an interview with Fox 45 News over the weekend.
What it shows is that DPW can't handle a crisis, can't handle routine services, and therefore the mayor's office had to step in and take over.
DPW was in violation of the requirements to provide notification.
Well, this isn't the first time we've seen Mayor Scott seem to deny problems in the city. Despite violent crime being up nearly all year long, Mayor Scott has continued to say his crime plan is working and doesn't need to be adjusted.
We start to grow into a city where you actually see neighborhoods and families changing from this work, conditions changing from this work. That's what we look like.
You're the one who ran on this, though.
We are talking about, Mackenzie, a disease of violence that has existed in Baltimore for over 50 years. And the people of Baltimore want it to be handled the right way, and they also understand that it's bigger than the police department.
Well, tomorrow, the City Council's Public Safety and Government Operations Committee will hold an oversight hearing with the Baltimore Police Department. Tomorrow's hearing will focus on crime trends like carjackings, robberies, and burglaries, which have been up this year. The hearing starts at 1 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. Fox 45 News will have complete coverage both on air and online.
Fogged in again overnight tonight. Low beam headlights and plenty of room between you and the car ahead of you for the morning commute. Already down to 2-mile visibility at Stevensville, 2 miles at Westminster, and this just the beginning. Doesn't show up too well on the HD radar, but they're also from this weather maker off the coast is a little bit of drizzle we're still dealing with. Another system could impact us for tomorrow. Temperatures settling into the upper 50s to low 60s. Again, fog, the big problem tomorrow morning. I'm going to plan it out hour by hour on the future scan, show you what the computer models say are going to be the worst areas in a couple of minutes.
Next on Fox 45 News at 10, a new program in hopes of preventing a repeat of the deadly Stricker Street fire.
I brought our daughter into this world last month without him, which is completely unfair.
Why a fix took so long and how this compares to prior efforts to keep firefighters safe. A new study finds the average Baltimore resident does not earn enough to comfortably cover the cost of living. How much money it takes to live in the city. Fights erupt in Baltimore County schools. The message parents are taking to the board meeting tonight.
Baltimore City quietly unveiled a new program Monday to mark dangerous vacant homes in an effort to keep first responders safe. It follows the deaths of 3 Baltimore City firefighters in January.
The program, though, is nothing new. In fact, it's nearly identical to Project X-Ray, a decade-old program that set out to do the very same thing, but it didn't last long.
Fox 45's Maxine Stryker has been investigating that program, why it ended, and how it could have saved more lives. She has the story you're seeing first on Fox.
The program only lasted about 2 years, but since then it's been recommended the Baltimore City Fire Department start tagging vacant homes again to better protect firefighters. But despite that, in a city with thousands of vacant homes, it's taken this long for the department to take action, and the death of 3 firefighters in January. And tonight, their families are speaking out. January 24th, 2022 was a dark day in Baltimore City's history.
We just had a collapse. Mayday, mayday, mayday.
Firefighters Lieutenant Paul Buttram, Kelsey Sadler, and Kenny Lacayo lost their lives after a vacant row home on Stricker Street collapsed in a fire.
I spent all day down there waiting for them to pull him out.
I received a phone call, somebody on the scene that said that there had been a collapse and I needed to start heading downtown.
9 months later, the pain is still fresh for their loved ones, missing them during life's most precious moments. Paul's wife, Rachel, recently welcomed their daughter.
I brought our daughter into this world last month without him, which is completely unfair.
The calls for change came almost immediately after their deaths.
There has to be a plan in place moving forward to prevent these from happening again.
In a city home to nearly 15,000 vacant properties, the crisis is decades old. But change didn't come until yesterday, 9 months later.
Because the program should have already been in effect.
Mayor Brandon Scott and Fire Chief Niles Ford launched the Unsafe Vacant Marking Initiative to help first responders identify dangerous vacant homes and buildings before entering. The red reflective signs will mark properties throughout the city, but the media was not invited to the announcement, despite Fox 45 asking questions about the initiative for months. Only these pictures were posted to social media.
They had Truck 23 and 14 Engine, the 2 companies out there doing it. It isn't right.
The photos deepened the wounds for Rachel and Kelsey's sister, Lacey Marino.
They should have continuously marked these buildings, and unfortunately, we're all suffering in the aftermath of losing those 3. So why are we going around posting pictures of putting placards up, and why are you using this grief for photo opportunities?
The marking program is nothing new. In 2010, Baltimore City launched Code X-Ray. Red signs with white X's were placed on the outside of blighted properties.
We go to these vacant homes very often for fires. We find people in these homes. People are squatting in these homes, so we have to go in these homes to search.
Rich Langford, president of the local 734 Firefighters Union, says vacant homes pose a greater fire risk, so the program was a heads up for firefighters to know what they were potentially up against.
Having these markings on the building gives us a little extra sense of saying, hey, we need to slow down just a bit, reevaluate once we get in there, and make sure it's safe for us to actually proceed.
But Code X-Ray didn't last long. By 2012, official safe funding ran dry, and neighbors complained the signs were an eyesore in their community. In 2014, a 62-year-old Baltimore fire lieutenant fell through a hole in a vacant row home and died from smoke inhalation. It was then the National Institute for Occupational Health and Safety recommended Baltimore Fire begin marking vacants that are unsafe. Their report says if this hazard had been identified by a building marking program, a different outcome might have occurred. But despite that, the fire department has gone nearly a decade without doing so.
We're coming up with a marking plan, new marking plan.
At a city council hearing in May, when discussing a plan to mark vacants, Chief Ford was questioned about why they weren't already doing so.
Can you tell me why did it take so long for the fire department to work with DHCD, or was there already something that was happening that possibly we didn't know about during those 7 years?
After the report occurred, the focus was trying to put that data into the CAD. That was the initial process of trying to put that data in the CAD. The challenge that we're going to continuously have with that kind of data is our vacant and even our unsafe vacant structures are going to ever evolve, almost every month. So our focus was to initiate putting information in the CAD initially.
It may be why these spray-painted red X's began appearing on vacant homes throughout the city. Sources tell us firefighters were taking matters into their own hands earlier this year, although the fire department won't confirm. But now, as permanent signs go up, the hope is they'll stay up and save lives.
It's long overdue. It shouldn't have took this long to get the program back up and running. We're now 10 months since the incident. It's about time we start putting actions out there instead of just talking about everything.
We asked why the media wasn't invited to the unveiling of that program yesterday, in which a spokesperson tells us in part, we weren't invited because it was an opportunity for the fire department to demonstrate how to properly place the signs on buildings. However, they have agreed to allow us to tag along with the department tomorrow and ask questions then. In Baltimore, Maxine Stryker, Fox 45 News.
CEOs of some of America's biggest companies are sharing their inflation forecast, how long they think high prices will last after the break.
And coming up at 10:30, the debate over which locker room transgender students can use continues in Harford County. What both parents and the school board are saying about it.
And visibilities drop again tonight. Take a look at our future scan computer model. The visibility is going from about 10 miles to, let's go ahead and take a look, all the way down to 0 as we head into the overnight hours, especially after midnight. Take a look at some of those up toward Cockeysville and Bel Air. By the time you're waking up early tomorrow morning, could have dense fog advisories once again. I'm going to let you know how things look toward Halloween, and we've got your latest leaf peeping forecast, foliage conditions as they peak in my Weather Authority forecast.
Inflation deals a major blow to consumer confidence. That, according to a new index by the conference board. After 2 months of improvement, consumer confidence is low.
CEOs of some major companies that produce household staples are sharing their own expectations for where prices are headed. National correspondent Atra El-Nashar has more.
For many Americans, living paycheck to paycheck is nothing new. But in the face of high inflation, getting by is even harder. Only 1 in 10 consumers say their incomes are keeping up with or exceeding the rate of inflation, according to this month's Payments Lending Club report, with female consumers less likely to report such wage increases than males. While many companies are reporting strong earnings, they're grappling with high costs too, particularly in the food industry. Kraft Heinz CEO Miguel Patricio says from supply chain issues to climate change, it's a constant fight to minimize price increases on grocery store shelves.
I'm predicting that next year, inflation will continue. And as a consequence, we'll have other rounds of price increases.
On the other side of the supply chain, farmers like Dennis Kohler near Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, are seeing their profit margins eroded by inflation. He tells Full Measure's Scott Thuman he's paying between 50% and 200% more for fertilizer than he did last year, if he can even get a hold of it.
There was situations where they were telling us that we might not be able to get it when we needed it.
He warns the ripple effects to consumers will be felt for a while, with it taking 18 to 24 months to finish a steer on his farm.
Potentially, we might not see the total cost effect on beef for maybe a year to 2 years from now.
There's uncertainty about prices across industries. This week, both General Motors and Coca-Cola reported higher than expected earnings, but executives at these companies say that they're preparing for challenging economic circumstances into next year.
We are expecting pricing to be ahead of normal next year on top of what's happened this year.
Consumers share those expectations. The Payments Lending Club report finds a majority expect it to take at least a year for prices to stabilize to pre-2021 levels. In Washington, I'm Atra El-Nashar reporting.
Parents and advocates gather ahead of the Baltimore County Board of Education meeting to call for more action about recent school violence, where state leaders stand on the issue.
Some Republicans fighting for control of Congress are outlining what they would do if they win, how they would address the riots following the death of George Floyd in 2020. Those stories and much more right after the break. Our top story at 10:30, Baltimore County parents making their voices heard about the violence in county schools.
They held a rally ahead of tonight's Board of Education meeting, calling on school leaders to do more to end violence in schools.
I'm praying that everybody here gets some type of resolution, because if we let them keep pushing us to the side, you're not going to get the result.
Well, the group repeated their calls during the public comment portion of the Board of Education meeting.
That's right. One group member brought up a virtual town hall the board held to address violence earlier this month, saying that wasn't enough.
The virtual town hall was less than impactful, in my opinion. It was very scripted and lightly attended. We're coming to you for help because we are legitimately concerned and want solutions. Your message seems to be that your hands are tied by law and COMAR, and the current practices are good enough. But something isn't working.
Well, tonight's rally comes on the heels of yet another viral fight video, and it's not just parents calling for change.
Fox 45's Rebecca Pryor is demanding answers from state and county leaders.
Yet parents gathering at tonight's school board meeting demanding safety for their children. I also spoke with the governor and Baltimore County executive, both joining their calls for change.
Another violent video is surfacing inside Baltimore County schools, this time from Owings Mills High School. In it, students are seen exchanging blows as several teachers get caught in the crosshairs.
It is to the point where it's out of control.
Darren Badillo, a member of Baltimore County's Parent and Student Coalition, says he's keeping track of violent incidents on school grounds. Last year, he counted 23 incidents in total. This year, he's already up to at least 18. The school system recently held a virtual town hall discussing BCPS's efforts to ensure student and staff safety. But Badillo says the sheer number of fights is proof they're still not doing enough.
We need to stop with this virtual meetings. You know, the pandemic is over. You know, the public needs to be, and they want to come together.
That's outrageous. We put hundreds of millions of dollars into the schools specifically for school resource officers.
So is that the answer? Do we need more school resource officers?
I think we do.
However, Baltimore County Executive Johnny Olszewski says under his tenure, they've only grown the SRO program.
Well, just this last budget, we added 4 additional floating SROs on top of the fact that we have floating school resource officers for our elementary schools. We have police officers in every middle school and high school.
So what is the answer to ending the violence? Badillo believes it all comes down to a lack of consequences.
We want these kids to be held accountable.
Despite the school district disagreeing. In a letter sent home to students and staff, Baltimore County Public Schools Superintendent Darrell Williams claiming violence is down 11% overall from this time last year, while out-of-school suspensions are up. Williams writing, quote, "The intolerable actions of 8.2% of students who have engaged in fights and other aggressive behaviors this school year create the impression that violent behavior is the norm and accepted in our schools. That is categorically false."
Now, among the speakers at tonight's rally is Republican candidate for Baltimore County Executive Pat McDonough. He tells me, quote, "All the rallies and all the protests in the world aren't going to make a difference. The only thing that can change is litigation." Going on to say he plans to file a federal lawsuit against Olszewski, the Board of Education, and the superintendent. Reporting from the control room, Rebecca Pryor, Fox 45 News.
In Baltimore City, a student was arrested today after police say he had a loaded handgun inside Forest Park High School in Northwest Baltimore. This marks the 5th gun found in a Baltimore City public school this year. Now, the mayor's Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement is expanding its violence intervention efforts to 3 Baltimore City high schools. Those schools include Mervo, Digital Harbor, and Carver Vocational. All 3 have seen fights or guns found. A student at Mervo High School was killed in September. Well, earlier this month, Baltimore City Councilwoman Odette Ramos called on volunteers to join a program to keep Mervo students safe while going to and from school. Monzi's new program is slated to begin next year. That brings us to our question of the day. Are you considering taking your child out of public school next year? So far, 88% of those who voted say yes. We'd like to hear from you. Go to foxbaltimore.com/vote to weigh in.
New tonight, Hartford County Public Schools is reaffirming its commitment to a policy allowing transgender students to use the bathroom and locker room corresponding to their gender identity. It follows a letter sent by Republican County Executive candidate State Senator Bob Casilli to the school board, highlighting a family's issue with this last month. Since it was reported, parents noticed. It dominated public comment at last night's school board meeting.
Students of the opposite birth gender was allowed in the locker room while the original student was supposed to undress in front of this person. This was mentally and emotionally traumatic for this child.
These are children. These are not Pon's views. Transgender children deserve our support just as all children.
This Board of Education is putting the safety of our girls at peril in support of a radical political agenda.
I like to read. I like to be a kid. Thank you for following policies that support and affirm trans students like me. Thank you.
Well, Hartford County school leaders say it's Maryland's state education policy that it is following. It has posted the state policy on its website. Their next meeting is November 7th.
Fox 45 News is taking you beyond the podium. A new endorsement for Democratic gubernatorial candidate Wes Moore. Former President Barack Obama has thrown his support behind Moore. A new poll shows Moore is leading his opponent, Dan Cox, by 32 points. If Wes Moore wins in November, he'll be a relative political rookie in Annapolis. On Fox 45 News at 5, we spoke to a political analyst, John Deedy, about what that would mean for Moore's leadership.
I think mainly the General Assembly will be doing a lot of leading. You know, Wes Moore has never been an elected official before. Larry Hogan was never an elected official before, but he worked in the Ehrlich administration. So I think there's going to be some leading done. And there's going to be a little bit of a quid pro quo in this way. Wes Moore is going to be governor of Maryland, but he may have higher aspirations. The General Assembly may support aspects of Moore's legislative agenda to help Moore down the road. In exchange, Moore supports some of the aspects of the legislative agenda leaders like Jones and Ferguson want to do. So I think that this will be beneficial to both of them.
Republican candidate for Governor Dan Cox has several prominent endorsements as well, including former President Donald Trump.
Well, one U.S. Senate race that could determine the balance of power is in Pennsylvania. Tonight, the only debate featuring Dr. Oz, the Republican candidate, and Democrat Lieutenant Governor John Fetterman was held. The two set differences on a range of issues, but it got heated when abortion was brought up.
As a physician, I've been in the room when there's some difficult conversations happening. I don't want the federal government involved with that at all. I want women, doctors, local political leaders, letting the democracy that's always allowed our nation to thrive, to put the best ideas forward so states can decide for themselves.
If you believe that the choice of your reproductive freedom belongs with Dr. Oz, then you have a choice. But if you believe that the choice for abortion belongs between you and your doctor, that's what I fight for. Roe v. Wade, for me, should be the law.
As it stands now, Fetterman has a slim lead in recent polls, but it is a dead heat, accounting for the margin of error.
As Republicans gain some momentum heading into the midterm election, some lawmakers are adding to the list of issues they want to investigate should they regain control in November. National correspondent Kayla Gaskins has the story.
Republicans fighting for control of Congress, outlining priorities should they win. Florida Senator Marco Rubio making his case on Fox News for an oversight committee to investigate the riots that rocked the country following the deaths of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor. Riots in which peaceful protests turned into looting and extensive damage to government buildings and businesses in several big cities.
There's been no accountability about the summer of 2020, so there's a host of things like that that we can hold government agencies accountable for.
Rubio's request comes after the Democratic-led House committee spent an enormous effort digging into the events surrounding January 6th. Domestic terrorism is rising dramatically, according to a report published earlier this year, particularly attacks related to demonstrations. According to the findings, in 2020, most of the attacks related to demonstrations, 58%, were conducted by violent far-right perpetrators, including white supremacists and militia members. In 2021, 73% were orchestrated by the far left, including anarchists and anti-fascists.
Antifa's an idea, not an organization.
Oh, you got to be
not
kidding.
malicious.
Katrina Doxey with the Center for Strategic and International Studies worked on the report.
It's really important that the government has a uniform approach to rejecting extremist violence, to rejecting acts of terrorism, and to investigating events that occur that meet the definition of terrorism.
Rubio's proposal is another investigation Republicans vow to look into should they regain control of Congress on Election Day, along with Hunter Biden's international business deals and Dr. Fauci's handling of the pandemic. In Washington, I'm Kayla Gaskins.
Be sure to check out the Fox 45 voter guide for all of our reporting on the upcoming general election, plus important dates to mark on your calendar. Point your phone's camera to that QR code or head to foxbaltimore.com/vote2022.
A new study finds the average Baltimore resident does not earn enough to comfortably cover the cost of living. An October report from GoBankingRates.com found the median income in Baltimore is just over $50,000, nearly $30,000 shy of the $81,000 in annual income needed as a renter in the city. The cost to live comfortably as a homeowner in the city is almost $70,000. A water main break causes a massive geyser along Daisy Avenue in southwest Baltimore today. That geyser at one point might have been high enough to see from the BW Parkway. We're not sure how many homes in the area are without water or for how long. Fox 45 News reached out to DPW for some details. We have not yet heard back. Well, the impact of toxic exposure on veterans is getting national attention. What it means for many female veterans in tonight's Spotlight on America report.
And it looks like some fog and clouds again to greet you tomorrow morning in Annapolis, and maybe even a shower or two. Kind of a gloomy day again for our Wednesday. I'm going to let you know, though, when the sun comes back and if we're going to have some brilliant fall colors in your neighborhood. Near peak conditions, where are they? That's all coming up in my Weather Authority forecast. Here we go. The fog setting up once again tonight. Down to about 2-mile visibility now. Westminster, 7 miles at Gaithersburg, 5 at Frederick, and getting closer to that 2-mile mark as we head out toward Stevensville and all the way down the Eastern Shore. Even some 1-mile visibility now getting in the mix. And you see, it's just a nasty shot on the Mile 1 Towson cam. We've got clouds. The fog, the drizzle, 59 degrees, winds are calm, the humidity high at 90%, and that all is going to equate to, again, a very moist overnight into tomorrow morning, and perhaps hazardous as those visibilities again come down, especially after midnight. A lot of us could see some near zero visibility at times. So you're going to need to leave plenty of room between you and the car ahead of you, and also low beam headlights going to be the way to go. Lots of extra time tomorrow morning as moisture with weather maker number 1 is off the coast. Weather maker number 2 is out to our west, and we're kind of sandwiched in with some drizzle in between with the clouds and again, some of those showers with this primarily coastal low pressure system. That's really the system affecting us at this point. But this next one, kind of a kicker, if you will, is going to move in and get all of this mess out of here as we head into the day tomorrow, as most of the heavier moisture ends up toward New England and New York. It's just going to be a couple of showers, I think, with it as it moves through. East of the Appalachians, man, we are just socked in with the clouds. Had highs at 64. We've only dropped a couple of degrees from there. Other side of the Appalachians, look at that, clear skies up toward Deep Creek Lake, and we're at 70 right now at Charleston. Yes, those winds out of the east are downsloping, warming, drying off of the Appalachian Mountains. But around here, not the case. And tomorrow's going to be another kind of cloudy day. Out in the tropics, low chance of development. That's one we'll watch out in the southwestern Atlantic for at least maybe some development next 5 to 10 days. And then lowering chances of development over Bermuda right now. That doesn't look like it's going to become anything, probably wiped off the map here in the next 6 to 12 hours. Overnight tonight, the clouds, maybe a shower or two, some drizzle, the fog, the big deal tomorrow morning. By about 9, 10 o'clock, that gets out of here. And then, look, some more showers roll in from the west with that next weather maker. It's not a ton, but there could be, again, some on and off showers throughout the day tomorrow. And then finally, this dries things out by Thursday. Tonight, 59 degrees, cloudy skies, patchy fog late at night. It's already starting to accrue. 69 and mostly cloudy for tomorrow. Drying out Thursday, Friday, Saturday, good-looking days. Sunday dry, too. Halloween, 65. Maybe some afternoon and evening showers especially. And if you're going to be leaf peeping or checking out some of the leaves, a good color this weekend, we've got peak conditions here in Baltimore, near peak southern reaches of the area. Great color out there.
Jonathan, thank you. In the last few months, the harmful impacts of toxic exposure on veterans has made national headlines. In the Spotlight on America, we take a look at what these hazardous exposures may mean for female veterans, particularly when it comes to those wanting to start a family. Here's Christine Frizzau.
Motherhood is a joy Carrie Carwin wasn't sure she'd ever know. She told us of all her challenging missions over 2 decades in the U.S. Coast Guard, starting her family was by far the most grueling. She struggled for 6 years to conceive and still remembers the questions that consumed her life.
I don't understand what's happening. My husband's healthy. He's had kids, but I'm healthy. Like, why are we not getting pregnant?
Fertility problems impact about 19% of women of reproductive age, but we discovered that number jumps dramatically when it comes to females who've served in the military. A staggering 57% of them say they've experienced family-building challenges, according to a 2021 study from the group Blue Star Families. Some of the causes vary, from time away from a spouse to post-traumatic stress. But there's also a lesser-known culprit that thousands of military women like Carrie believe may be to blame: exposure to toxins.
I was an engineer on a ship and we had asbestos. Obviously there's a bunch of different chemicals. In my response job, we responded to oil spills and benzene and all kinds of stuff. There's exposure there that you would have at a single point in time may not be damaging, but over the course of a career, could have a long-term and devastating effect.
Overseas, so-called burn pits posed the same kind of potentially devastating effects on others. The toxic smoke spewing from these trash fires contained everything you can imagine, says Jeremy Butler, CEO of Iraq and Afghanistan Veterans of America.
You're talking plastic, metals, ammunition, body parts, literally anything and everything that is generated by a city is what we're talking about here.
With regards to this, in terms of
Congresswoman Julia Brownley from California has made helping veterans dealing with toxic exposure central to her work on Capitol Hill, and she's focused much of her attention on those hazardous burn pits.
It is clearly important that we recognize that this is a very dangerous duty. It's a required duty, but a very dangerous one, and we need to respond.
What is your response to those who say, well, there's just not enough evidence yet that we can know that these illnesses are directly related to the burn pits?
If you've ever been around a burn pit, logic will tell you that it has to have in some way an impact.
She has authored multiple bills seeking to expand access to reproductive health care for women veterans, most of which have not yet passed.
I think probably most women who serve in our military when they leave the military are going to want to have a family, and if their reproductive organs are not working, that's a big problem.
It's a problem Carrie and her husband Rob believe must be urgently addressed. Their story had a happy ending, but they worry for so many other women who sign up to serve. For Spotlight on America, I'm Christine Frizzau.
A trio of viruses putting a strain on American hospitals. Which one could be the most dangerous? And the injury report is extensive for the Ravens ahead of Thursday's game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Who's on the list and who returned to practice today? Well, it is a short week for the Ravens. A quick turnaround ahead of Thursday night's game against the Buccaneers in Tampa. A big focus this week, red zone efficiency. The Ravens settled for 3 field goals Sunday against the Browns and turned the ball over late in the fourth quarter. But Coach John Harbaugh says as long as Lamar Jackson's at the helm, things are going to be okay.
It comes down to execution at the end of the day in terms of scoring touchdowns. We've got playmakers. Lamar, I really believe Lamar Jackson is one of the very best red zone quarterbacks in his career so far. He's been able to extend plays, make plays, find ways to make plays different ways. So we've got that going for us. I'm confident we'll get that going.
Harbaugh also gave a shout out to rookie center Tyler Linderbaum making his first Thursday night road trip. Linderbaum sounded like a veteran when talking about this week's grind.
Everyone's going to be sore. Everyone's going to be sore from the game on Sunday, but it's who can prepare the best and who can get their bodies in the best possible shape. Things are definitely moving fast. Not as big of a physical week, but more of a mental preparation, get your body rested. I think we've done a good job so far. Just got to continue to do it, continue to get rehab and stuff like that.
Speaking of rehab, 10 Ravens made the injury report. Some notable players not practicing today include Mark Andrews, Rashad Bateman, Ronnie Stanley, and Calais Campbell. This many players out isn't surprising, given the short turnaround. Marlon Humphrey and Marcus Peters did not practice Monday, but they did return to the field today. Well, ahead on the late edition, Baltimore residents have been asking for clarity on their 25% water bill discount, when they can expect to see the change. And Baltimore's entertainment scene is set for a major upgrade. The big change is on the way for the area near the stadiums. Well, sports, food, and fun getting a big boost to an area downtown. Representatives from the Ravens, the Horseshoe Casino, and Top Golf gathered in the Warner Street Entertainment District with some new details on their plans to develop the area. The plans include the opening of the new Top Golf and the construction of the Paramount Baltimore. It will be a live music venue that will be located between the football stadium and the casino. Speakers at the event say the $100 million investment will help improve the local economy and safety in the surrounding neighborhood.
These investments are changing communities and changing lives. And so I'm just so thrilled to be here for the economic development story, but also the story of communities that are benefiting because of the risks that were taken and the rewards that we will benefit for the entire region moving forward.
Well, the first part of the project to open will be the new Top Golf facility. It's expected to open this Friday. It has 90 outdoor hitting bays. Top Golf combines golf with video games, food, and drink service.
It is highly unusual for two people who are customarily on the same team to be at such great odds with one another.
Maryland's Attorney General claims prosecutors mishandled Adnan Syed's case. How the city state's attorney's office is firing back. Baltimore County parents push for a better response to school violence. Why they feel the school board hasn't done enough. And 9 months after tragedy, Baltimore's plan to mark vacant homes is back. Why it was originally shut down and what city leaders are doing this time.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News Late Edition.
Good evening, I'm Kai Jackson. Accusations fly between Maryland Attorney General Brian Frosh and City State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby after Frosh filed a court document questioning Mosby's handling of the Adnan Syed case. Jeff Abel has been looking into the disagreement between the state's top prosecutor and Baltimore City's state's attorney.
Well, Maryland's Attorney General came out swinging today, insisting he never hid evidence in this case and accusing prosecutors of having little evidence to warrant the release of Adnan Syed.
Adnan, how do you feel?
In the months since Adnan Syed's release, the fight over his guilt or innocence has grown fierce. Some of the strongest words came from Maryland's Attorney General today, where Brian Frosh pointed to red flags in State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby's handling of the case, calling their investigation both unorthodox and questionable. The Attorney General wrote, the timing and contents of the motion, the hearing on the motion, the subsequent dismissal of the charges, and the out-of-court statements of Baltimore City State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby raised red flags about the integrity and neutrality of the proceedings.
There's so many outstanding questions about what occurred here, and the Attorney General wants the courts to get to the bottom of that.
The Attorney General was responding today to efforts by defense attorneys to exclude him from a pending appeal in the case, but his words have put two prosecutors at odds.
It is highly unusual for two people who are customarily on the same team to be at such great odds with one another.
The state's attorney's office responded late today, writing, we stand by our investigation and our ultimate finding that there is no credible evidence that Mr. Syed was involved in the death of Ms. Lee. Our investigation is extensive and only a portion of our findings were outlined in the motion in order to present enough compelling evidence for the court to consider our request without compromising this open and pending investigation.
The fact that she's negligent or conducting no investigation whatsoever is a cause for deep concern.
Sean Kennedy with the Maryland Public Policy Institute calls this latest turn of events deeply concerning.
There are killers on the streets of Baltimore today because Marilyn Mosby has a zeal for releasing them. Whatever is going on in the conviction integrity unit related to these exonerations stinks to high heaven.
All of this comes in response to a lawsuit filed by the victim's family, alleging that the court didn't provide them adequate notice the day these charges were dismissed. Jeff Abel, Fox 45 News.
Baltimore City State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby will be back in court on December 15th for a hearing on her upcoming trial. Topics include Mosby's request to move the trial out of Baltimore, whether her legal team should be sanctioned for disclosing juror information, and the federal government's request for a gag order. Baltimore residents expect a 25% discount on their water bills should see it this week. It's an effort to cover interrupted service and excessive water usage following the E. coli contamination. Over the past month, Fox 45 News has been investigating DPW's response and why the public wasn't notified sooner.
In many ways, this is death by 1,000 cuts for Baltimore government. Seemingly from every possible entry point, they're taking on water. No pun intended.
Mackenzie Frost and the rest of our investigative team have done extensive reporting on the water contamination in West Baltimore. You can find their complete coverage and reporting on our website, foxbaltimore.com. Baltimore County parents are pressing the county school board tonight about the recent violence in schools. They held a rally asking for school leaders to do more to keep children safe. A parent says a virtual town hall to address violence this month wasn't enough.
The virtual town hall was less than impactful, in my opinion. It was very scripted and lightly attended. We're coming to you for help because we are legitimately concerned and want solutions. Your message seems to be that your hands are tied by law and COMAR, and the current practices are good enough. But something isn't working.
In Baltimore City, the mayor's Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement, also known as MONSE, is expanding to 3 Baltimore City high schools. Those schools are Mervo, Digital Harbor, and Carver Vocational. Police have confiscated 5 handguns on city school property this year. The new violence interrupters will teach conflict resolution and behavioral skills.
Now, a Fox 45 News Alert in 3, 2, 1.
Well, tonight we are learning more about Monday's deadly shooting inside a St. Louis high school. Police say the shooter was armed with an AR-15 rifle equipped with more than 600 rounds of ammo. A teacher and student were killed while several others were injured. Police killed the suspect in a shootout shortly after seeing him in the school.
They put the car in park, they drew a weapon, they went into the building. There was no sidewalk conference. There was no discussion. There was no, hey, where are you going to? They just went right in.
Police say the suspect was a 19-year-old recent graduate from the school. The motive is under investigation.
Tomorrow marks 9 months since the tragedy on Stricker Street. 3 Baltimore City firefighters were killed while battling a blaze inside a vacant home. Now, Baltimore City is unveiling a program to mark dangerous vacant homes in an effort to keep firefighters and first responders safe. A decade-old program called Project X-Ray tried to do the same thing, but funding ran dry after 2 years. Now, city leaders hope to avoid future disasters.
It's long overdue. It shouldn't have took this long to get the program back up and running. Having these markings on the building gives us a little extra sense of saying, hey, we need to slow down just a bit, reevaluate once we get in there, and make sure it's safe for us to actually proceed.
Before this plan began, firefighters had to rely on their knowledge of vacants in an area and an outdated computer system. To see Maxine Stryker's full story, including perspective from the fallen firefighters' loved ones, head to our website, foxbaltimore.com. Well, believe it or not, Thanksgiving is 30 days away. Still ahead, why right now might be the perfect time to pick up your turkey.
And the travel outlook for tomorrow morning looks like as we head through the overnight hours, fog begins to kind of set up pretty badly, and it could even be some dense fog advisories toward morning. By about 9 a.m. breezes start to pick up a little bit and we begin to clear out the fog. I'm going to let you know when things are going to finally get sunny around here in my Weather Authority forecast.
Here's a look at today's top trending stories. Number one, a water main break causes a massive geyser along Daisy Avenue in southwest Baltimore. That geyser at one point might have been high enough to see from the BW Parkway. We're not sure how many homes in the area could be without water or for how long, but Fox 45 News did reach out to DPW for more information. So far, we haven't heard back. We'll keep you updated. Number two, a major explosion today on I-95 in Florida. Check this out. A tanker overturns in Delray Beach. Heavy smoke could be seen for miles. Local police say that tanker crashed into at least 2 other cars. 3 people were hurt, but there's no official word on how many vehicles were involved. Number three, never too early to start thinking about that Thanksgiving turkey. And it may be a little bit tougher to get one this year. According to the USDA, bird flu has killed about 5.4 million turkeys in the United States this year. But experts say this year's turkey shortage and high prices will put a strain on your wallet.
There's also a big price difference in turkeys. And a lot of that has to do with not only the availability of the birds, but also everything that everyone else has experienced. Higher fuel prices, drought impacting supply of grains, Ukraine war. All these things come back and affect the cost of raising whatever turkeys we do have.
Well, in our area, Walmart and Wise are both beating the national average right now. A turkey at Walmart cost $1.68 a pound, while Wise recently priced birds for $1.89 a pound. Number four, the U.S. Postal Service is honoring the late Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. This design of Ginsburg will be featured on a forever stamp in 2023, but there's no word yet on when exactly it will be available to buy. Well, still ahead, Democrat Wes Moore picks up a key endorsement as his campaign for Maryland governor. How a political analyst thinks this could shift the race. And a huge Senate race to the north in Pennsylvania. Lieutenant Governor John Fetterman and Dr. Mehmet Oz share their thoughts on critical issues. Election day is 2 weeks out, and Democratic candidate for governor Wes Moore picks up a key endorsement from former President Barack Obama. In a video message shared on Moore's Twitter page, Obama says Moore is working to bring people together at a divisive time. Political analyst John Deedy joined Fox 45 News at 5 to discuss the endorsement's impact.
I think it's a good endorsement for the Moore campaign. This was something Obama was going to do anyways, and it just kind of puts a little bit more of Obama's heft behind Moore, especially in places like Baltimore City and Prince George's County.
Well, Moore's opponent, Republican Dan Cox, has gotten a key endorsement as well from former President Donald Trump, who says Cox is a patriot, tough lawyer, and smart businessman. According to recent polling, Moore currently leads Cox by more than 30 points. This year's Pennsylvania Senate race could determine the balance of power in the U.S. Senate. Tonight, the lone debate between Democrat Lieutenant Governor John Fetterman and Republican Dr. Mehmet Oz. The two set differences on a range of issues, but it got heated when the topic of abortion came up.
As a physician, I've been in the room when there's some difficult conversations happening. I don't want the federal government involved with that at all. I want women, doctors, local political leaders, letting the democracy that's always allowed our nation to thrive, to put the best ideas forward so states can decide for themselves.
If you believe that the choice of your reproductive freedom belongs with Dr. Oz, then you have a choice. But if you believe that the choice for abortion belongs between you and your doctor, that's what I fight for. Roe v. Wade, for me, should be the law.
Well, Fetterman has a slim lead in recent polls, but it's a dead heat when accounting for that margin of error. Be sure to check out the Fox 45 voter guide for our reporting on the upcoming general election. Click on the QR code you see right here or head to our website, foxbaltimore.com/vote2022.
All right, here we go again. The fog setting up 2-mile visibility out Westminster Way, down on Kent Island to Stevensville, and all the way back to Easton. Only 1 mile visibility right now. Toyota Eastern Harbor Skycam starting to kind of obscure the Domino sugar sign a little bit as those clouds continue to lower. And probably after midnight, you will have some greatly reduced visibilities in spots. Wouldn't be surprised to have some dense fog advisories again for tomorrow morning's commute. One more time, 59 right now. The winds out of the south at 5, and that's plowing in the moisture. Look at that. Humidity is high at 93%. Doesn't take much to get fog in weather like this, and we have some drizzle too to boot. And if you have a messy head wiper situation, or a messy, I should say, windshield wiper situation, you're going to have some trouble seeing as we head into tomorrow morning, as well as that drizzle kind of messes up your windshield. So you need the low beam headlights, you need the clean windshield wipers, and of course you need lots of room between you and the car ahead of you, and the extra time. Don't forget that too. Boston to Falmouth, Massachusetts. That's a steadier rain. That's the stuff that was here on Sunday. Still that same weather maker spinning around off the coast. Give us the clouds, the light showers, and the drizzle. And then there's another one that's out west. This is the next weather maker. And in fact, a lot of this moisture you see here, it's pretty heavy out to our west, where they've got some extra moisture banking up and some warm temperatures they had today. We don't have that. So we could see some of this kind of feather out as this next system moves a bit closer to us, as the showers kind of peel off and head to the north. But there could be a stray couple of showers tomorrow as we finally break this pattern in this system. This is going to kick out that ugly pattern we've been dealing with for the past several days, and drier but cooler weather arrives for the remainder of the week. Right now, temperatures, they are still about 55 to 60. Lots of clouds, the fog building in, winds out of the east are actually down sloping, we call it. In other words, they're going up and over the Appalachians and the Blue Ridge, moving back down toward lower elevations in places like Cumberland, some of the valleys out that way, and especially as you head into West Virginia, Ohio. And it's drying out. It's warming up. Look at these temperatures at 60 at Pittsburgh, 68 right now with some clearing skies out Charleston and West Virginia way. They were up near 80 degrees today, just 50 miles away from us out to our west. They had lots of sunshine. We've just been jammed in this kind of ugly marine type pattern, and that may continue tonight and tomorrow as well. But there are signs of changes and differences to come and improvements. Now, down in the tropics, this is not improving. There's actually a low chance, a 30% chance of development in this big moisture feed coming in across the Caribbean islands. Now, that is something that we'll watch over the next several days, probably next 5 to 10 days. Some computer models are putting something out there in the southwestern portion of the Atlantic. Then there's also a low chance of development that is right around Bermuda. That continues to gradually wane. We've got some hostile conditions for any formation there. So the future scan says for us, again, there could be some drizzle, some light rain. The clouds fill in. The fog fills in as well. Temperatures 55 to 60 tomorrow morning. And by tomorrow afternoon, notice noon through about lunchtime, some sprinkles, some showers. That big system out to our west, it kind of, again, diminishes, but there could be some shower activity all the way into tomorrow afternoon here and there, and that will be the means to the end as drier weather moves in and more crisp weather moves in by tomorrow night into Thursday. 59 patchy fog, some of that dense overnight, especially toward tomorrow morning's commute, and could see some drizzle as well. Spot showers tomorrow with high temperatures near 69, 67 in the wake of our cold front on Thursday. And there you go. There's that cooler weather for Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Clouds increase just in time, of course, for Halloween. 65. Could see some stray showers around, especially during the afternoon. This is our preview of our trick-or-treating. Looks like during the afternoon for the younger kids and the children, probably going to have a couple of showers around. It's lighter stuff, but it could get heavier for the older kids as we head towards early overnight hours and overnight Halloween into next Tuesday.
All right, Jonathan, thank you. Let's take a look at tomorrow's headlines. Mayor Brandon Scott and his Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement are discussing ways to reduce violence in communities as part of a convention with mayors nationwide. Baltimore City first responders will meet with the City Council to discuss how PTSD is affecting their mental health. The City Council will also meet on how to limit crime like robberies, carjackings, and property crime. Well, South Baltimore's entertainment area is getting a big boost. Representatives from the Ravens, Horseshoe Casino, and Top Golf revealed plans to redevelop that entertainment district. Speakers at the event say the $100 million investment will help improve the local economy and safety in the neighborhood.
These investments are changing communities and changing lives. And so I'm just so thrilled to be here for the economic development story, but also the story of communities that are benefiting because of the risks that were taken and the rewards that we will benefit for the entire region moving forward.
Hey, if you're interested, Top Golf opens this Friday, and a live music venue is coming soon between the stadiums and casino.
Not one, not two, but 3 illnesses now rapidly spreading. It's referred to as the triple-demic. I'm Liz Bonus, what you need to know. And if you can avoid any of these illnesses, it's just ahead.
Doctors recommend people get a COVID and flu vaccine as a triple threat of viruses fills up hospital beds nationwide. Medical reporter Liz Bonus is tracking those cases.
Hey there, everybody. The threat for a triple-demic is now on the rise. Those tracking illnesses say 3 respiratory illnesses now have collided. They have the potential to become a triple threat, as we say, to your health very soon.
A little sore throat, little sinus, took some Mucinex or whatever and feeling fine, so.
For young, healthy adults such as Tony Remington, the respiratory symptoms of these illnesses generally mild. But for older adults and some of the youngest victims, it's now filling 75% of the nearly 40,000 pediatric hospital beds across the country. That's up nearly 4% from just a week ago.
We are seeing more respiratory syncytial virus or RSV and influenza cases than we have in previous years.
The triple-demic is the perfect storm of an early rise in flu cases, steady Omicron infections from COVID-19, and what appears to be the worst surge in years of RSV or respiratory syncytial virus.
These are usually sort of winter viruses, and so we don't usually see many cases until we enter the holiday season.
This year, however, in this gravity diagnostics lab in Kentucky,
we see a large increase in upper respiratory infection samples that are being sent to the laboratory.
What's more is that testing here shows, while not common, you can get co-infections of these viruses.
Yeah, of course you can get more than one thing at a time.
What to know? Getting a flu vaccine and the bivalent booster are your best defenses right now. And if trouble breathing sets in from any virus,
that's when it gets serious enough that you might find yourself in an emergency department.
long wait times have already been reported, especially in pediatric ERs. So it is suggested, if possible, before you head there, you see if your pediatrician or primary care doctor can help you intervene first. I'm medical reporter Liz Bonus. Now back to you.
Well, the Ravens are on a tight schedule as they prepare for Tampa on Thursday. Why the quick turnaround isn't phasing one of the Ravens' rookies. Hey, it's that dreaded short week for the Ravens. A quick turnaround for Thursday night's game against the Buccaneers in Tampa. A big focus is red zone efficiency. The Ravens are near the bottom of the league in red zone TDs. They settled, though, for 3 field goals Sunday against the Browns and turned the ball over late in the fourth quarter. Coach John Harbaugh is confident in QB Lamar Jackson.
Comes down to execution at the end of the day. in terms of scoring touchdowns. We've got playmakers. I really believe Lamar Jackson is one of the very best red zone quarterbacks, in his career so far. He's been able to extend plays, make plays, find ways to make plays different ways. So we've got that going for us. I'm confident we'll get that going.
Harbaugh also gave a shout out to rookie center Tyler Linderbaum making his first Thursday night road trip. Linderbaum sounded like a veteran when talking about this week's grind.
Everyone's going to be sore. Everyone's going to be sore from the game on Sunday, but it's who can prepare the best and who can get their bodies in the best possible shape. Things are definitely moving fast. Not as big of a physical week, but more of a mental preparation, get your body rested. I think we've done a good job so far. Just got to continue to do it, continue to get rehab and stuff like that.
Well, 10 Ravens made the injury report. Some notable players not practicing today include receiver Mark Andrews, tight end Rashad Bateman, Ronnie Stanley, and Calais Campbell. Marlon Humphrey and Marcus Peters didn't practice Monday, but they did return to the field today. And check out this week's episode of The Flock on Fox 45. The Ravens got a narrow 23-20 win over the Cleveland Browns. The crew has instant reaction as well as a look ahead to Thursday's game against the Buccaneers. To download the show, search for Fox 45 on Apple, Spotify, and Amazon podcast platforms. Well, the fall class that begins this Friday on Fox 45. The Philadelphia Phillies and Houston Astros square off for the World Series title. The Astros are making their fourth World Series appearance in 6 years, while the Phillies are back for the first time in 12. Game 1, Friday at 8 o'clock right here on Fox 45. Well, finally tonight, some of the Baltimore area's top high school girls cross-country athletes went for glory at this evening's championships. It was a big day. This was the Interscholastic Athletic Association of Maryland event. It was held at the Agricultural Park on Shawan Road in Hunt Valley. A beautiful night for a meet. Congratulations to all the athletes and teams who participated. In fact, locally, the varsity girls from Mercy High School in Baltimore took home the trophy for the Class B championship. They won Class C last year, and I'm pointing out Mercy because my daughter Grace is a senior, and this was her final cross-country meet. She did a great job. Daddy's proud of you, sweetie. I'm proud of all the Mercy girls. There they are. Congrats to Coach Grace and her staff for doing such a wonderful job coaching these phenomenal young ladies. Go Mercy girls. Well, that's all for us on the late edition. I'm Kai Jackson. Thank you for watching. Have a great night. We'll see you tomorrow.